under the fundamentals of GST, very, very important foundation stone it is I am bringing to your notice. Listen here. You know IGST. Who will levy IGST? Central government. In the case where transaction at interstate level. Is clear? Perfect. Very good. In the case of intrastate, CGST and SGST. Good. Now, here we have UTGST. One should not deny this. Here amendments also taken by recent past. What happened now, my dear? Earlier we had 9 union territories, in fact. 9 union territories. But what happened in the recent past? This particular Dadra and Nagar Haveli, one union territory, followed by Daman and Diu. These two separate union territories earlier. Now Government of India, for the easy administration purpose, merged these 2 UTs into one UT. Now named as Dadar, Nagar Haveli and Daman and Diu is called as one union territory. When UTGST will apply? A question mark. And who enacted this act? Sir, IGST enacted by whom? You tell me. IGST enacted by central government. SGST enacted by state governments. Excellent, my dear. UTGST enacted by whom? Central government of India. Why, sir? Why not the respect to state governments? Sir, UTGST Act enacted by the Government of India because the UT for which no state assembly. There are the following 5 states which has no state legislature. We have Tamil Nadu State Assembly, Andhra Pradesh State Assembly, Kerala State Assembly, Karnataka State Assembly, Maharashtra State Assembly, we have. But even you talk about unitaries, New Delhi, namely Delhi, we have State Assembly. Our Pondicherry, we have State Assembly. Wherever State Assembly is there SGST apply for intrastate supply along with CGST. In the case of union territory, such union territory not possessed state legislature, for that state, namely for that union territory, Government of India enacted the UTGST Act by passing the bill in the Parliament, got the assent from the President of India. There are 5 states like that. One is called as Andaman Nicobar Island, 2 Chandigarh, 3 Dadar and Nagar Haveli, followed by Daman and Diu. 4th one is Ladakh. 5th one Lakshadweep. These 5 union territories, UTGST Act enacted by the Government of India. However, Delhi union territory, where State Assembly is there, they have been passed State SGST Act. Pondicherry, called Puducherry, though may be union territory, which has its State Assembly, Puducherry, Pondicherry also be passed the State SGST Act, resulting that Delhi and Pondicherry SGST applies, though it may be union territories. Is it clear, my dear sir? This revenue source to the central government, state government, CGST, revenue of the central, SGST, revenue of the state, UTGST, revenue of the union territory where there is no state assembly. CGST goes to central government. IGST levied by government, further apportion between central and states. Is it clear, sir? As simple as this. We have how many states, my dear sir? 28 states and 8 union territories. Out of the 8 union territories, 5 union territories we have no state assembly. 3 states of union territories has state assembly. One is called Delhi. Second one, Pondicherry. Jammu and Kashmir I have not referred. Why not referred means state assembly yet to be formed there. After bifurcation of the Jammu and Kashmir into 2 UTs, one is called Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. Ladakh UT which has no state assembly. When you talk Jammu and Kashmir, though unitary, it has state assembly concept. Elections set to take place over there. Now the presidential rule is going on there. Jammu and Kashmir is a unitary. If tomorrow, day after tomorrow, election takes place, state assembly will form, and obviously we can call SGST applicability. Even now also, in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, though state assembly yet to be formed, transaction took place within the state of Jammu and Kashmir. What is going to levy? CGST and SGST. Is clear, my dear sir? Here, there is an amendment in the Finance Act 2020. In this particular, seal number 4. Earlier, schedule 2, point number 4, in that sub point A, reads as follows: goods forming part of business are transferred or disposed of by owner, whether or not for a consideration. It was. I am referring for a kind consideration to have amended provision from the Finance Act 2020, well applicable for your forthcoming examination of May 2021 onwards. Dear friends, if you refer here carefully, who transferred what? Owner transferred business assets. Permanent transfer. Supply of goods, supply of services, supply of goods. This is what we understood in the regular study. Am I right? Now I am presenting in front of you, if that is the case, why there should be a sentence whether or not for consideration. If you say the owner of the asset in the business, he transferred the business asset to somebody else, freely, gift given, also is tantamount to supply of goods. But in our regular study, section 7.1, where we referred, 7.1a, 7.1b and all, we referred, there must be a consideration. A supply must be dash. A supply should be for a consideration. Am I right or not? If that is the case, this particular provision, schedule 2, point number 2, dominates the section which says that, my dear friends, if the owner of the business transfer the business asset free of cost to a other person permanently, schedule 2, point number 4a says it is supply of goods. First of all, if there is no consideration, where is the question of supply? Supply has 6 characters. There must be supply of goods, supply of services. It should be for consideration. It should be in the course or furtherance of business. Further, it should be supplied by taxable person. It should be a taxable supply, and it should be in the taxable territory. Now, one of the ingredient what? Consideration. In that case, here there was the law prior to this amendment in the Finance Act 2020, business asset transferred by the owner whether or not for consideration, even though no consideration is a supply. That means Schedule 2 appended to the Act going to be dominate your section, statute. It is provides ambiguity. The intention of the lawmaker is not so to dominate. Schedule 2 should not dominate the sections. The intention is if you transfer the business asset free of cost permanently, on which if it have been availed input as credit, you got added benefit. That asset, instead of using for business purpose, you are giving to somebody else free of cost. Therefore, that time only is supply if there is no consideration. If there is a consideration, then automatically supply under section 7(1)(a). You got the clarity? Then how to understand this point? I will explain to you with example now. Furthermore amendment here, not only in point number 4A, but also point number 4B. Here also, the owner, person carrying the business, uses or allowed to use business assets for personal use, whether or not for consideration, was there prior to the Finance Act 2020. Now, Finance Act 2020 said that we are going to avoid confusion which arose out of this sentence attached to this particular note, Schedule 2, point number 4AB. Therefore, here also, whether or not for consideration has been omitted in the Finance Act 2017 with retrospective effect, the day on which the GST introduced in India on appointed day, on 1st July 2017 onwards, this amendment has been taken place, retrospective amendment, to avoid the confusion in application. Then how we are going to take this means, now very happy to note, I am easily present this amendment, I am presenting its implication with the help of example. Is it clear, my dear sir? Now look on the screen, my dear. Transactions or activities covered under Schedule 2, point number 4. Transfer, where subpoint A says permanent transfer, subpoint B says temporary transfer. In both the cases, business assets. Was there earlier, whether or not for consideration. Now, from the Finance Act 2020, with retrospective effect from 1st July 2017 onwards, retrospectively amended by omitting whether or not for consideration. The term whether or not for consideration has been omitted with retrospectively in the Finance Act 2020. The impact is as follows now. Transfer of business assets, if there is a case, permanent transfer or temporary transfer. So permanent transfer, sir, very good. If so, for consideration or for no consideration. Sir, it is for consideration only, sir. No problem. Supply of goods as referred under section 7(1) clause A itself. Read with Schedule 2, take the supply of goods because title on the goods has been transferred for consideration. It's a normal course of business, therefore supply. On the other hand, permanently transfer the business assets for no consideration. Here only be alert. That time you have to refer transaction covered under Schedule 1 of the CGST Act, where there are 4 points. You are very much familiarized with that. If it is yes sir, covered sir, then that is called as supply of goods as referred under section 7(1)(c). Read with Schedule 1. If it is not covered under Schedule 1, in that case, if not covered, then not at all a supply. But prior to this retrospective amendment, these two transactions considered as whether or not for consideration. Thereby it is look like overriding the statutory provisions. To avoid that, now clarification given here with retrospect to effect by stating that if it is transfer of business assets, permanent transfer for no consideration, and also not covered under Schedule 1, then it is not a supply. Is clear, my dear sir? Very clear clarity. On the other hand, temporary transferred for consideration or for no consideration. Temporary transfer permitted to use for consideration, then obviously will covered under 7(1)(c), read with Schedule 2, called as supply of services. 7(1)(a), read with Schedule 2, supply of services. Supply includes services. Repeating again, if covered under Schedule 2, point number 4(b), temporary transfer of business assets, in that case, permitted to use to any person, in that case, for consideration, then it is supply of services as referred under 7(1)(a), read with Schedule 2, supply of services. If it is for no consideration, my dear, then only the point comes into picture. In that case, how to identify here means, in the given case, my dear sir, if it is for no consideration, temporary transfer of business assets for no consideration, then in that case, covered under Schedule 1, one should identify. Sir, yes sir, covered under Schedule 1, sir, in that case is a supply of services as referred under Section 7, subsection 1, clause C, read with Schedule 1. Is it clear, my dear sir? If temporary transfer of business assets for no consideration and also be not covered under Schedule 1, in that case, if not covered under Schedule 1, then I can say that not a supply, not a supply. As simple as this is an amendment with retrospective effect in the Finance Act 2020 with regard to Schedule 2, point number 4, subpoint A, subpoint B. Got the clarity, my dear friends? Any difficulty in the given case, my dear? I am bringing to a notice latest circular in this regard of the CBIC with regard to director remuneration. Are you with me, my dear friends? Are you getting clarity? Now, director remuneration, a recent amended provision here, I am bringing to a notice a clarification of the CBIC in this regard. One can expect in the examination, my dear sir. First of all, you have to identify, when you talk about director, there may be independent director, whole-time director, part-time director, women director, managing director, nominee director. There is so much list is there. My dear sir, if a director of a company and received any remuneration from the company where he holds directorship, in such case, its tax liability under GST has been clarified by saying that, is it your directorship, what nomenclature? Is it independent director? You have the status, or other than independent director? First you have to identify. CBIC said, if you are independent director, as per the Companies Act 2013, under section 149, subsection 6 of the Companies Act 2013, very clearly stated that an independent director cannot be at any circumstances employee of the company. Understand? If so, if independent director is not employee of the company, in that case, tell me brothers, whatever remuneration or salary or commission or consideration drawn by independent director from the company, not in the course of employment. Am I right? If it is not in the course of employment, obviously will fall under GST category. Yes, it will attract the GST. It is a supply. When it comes into picture supply, who is liable to pay GST in the case of director remuneration which is not come under the purview of the employment? Then we have section 9, subsection 3 of the CGST, which talks about reverse charge mechanism where the recipient of that service is a company liable to pay GST. Got the clarity by this? So I mentioned here taxable in the hands of the company under RCM. When it is taxable? When you are a independent director. As an independent director, you cannot be called as employee of the company. If you are not an employee of the company, as per section 149 subsection 6 of the Companies Act, your drawings from the company is taxable in the hands of company, where you have directorship on RCM, reverse charge mechanism basis. Got the clarity, my dear sir? If that is the case, my dear, on the other hand, if you are other than independent director, you may be managing director, you may be whole-time director, you may be a part-time director, you may be woman director, you may be any other director other than independent director. If you are other than independent director, in that case, whether you are holding the directorship along with your employment or not, that means remuneration paid to director is subject to TDS under section 192 of the Income Tax Act, means salary. Then covered under Schedule 3, no GST, because supply excludes. Employee provide these services to employer in the course of employment. Got the clarity, my dear? Further, suppose remuneration paid to director is subject to TDS under section 194J, profession of the Income Tax Act, then taxable in the hands of company, because under RCM. Get the clarity, my dear sir? Which is under RCM. When you talk about whole-time director is employee of the company? Yes, obviously, then only he is called whole-time director. If there is a case, such whole-time director drawn the remuneration, whatever he drawn, comes under 192? Yes, sir. May not be repeating again. A whole-time director must be the employee of the company. Then only we call him whole-time director. Such whole-time director drawn from the company, any consideration, remuneration, commission or whatever may be called is subject to 192 of the Income Tax Act. May not be. Salary is subject to 192. Is clear, sir? Where the whole-time director, if attend the board meeting and drawn the sitting fees of a director of a company, though he may be whole-time director, though he may be employee of the company, that particular sitting fees is going to be taxed under which head of income tax out of the 5 heads? Income from other sources. That means it is not from salary head, resulting that the director remuneration paid to whole-time director in the name of sitting fees, which is maybe subject to the income from other sources, which is not from head salary, it is not the in the course of employment, resulting that reverse charge, taxable supply, recipient liable to pay GST. Got the clarity, my dear sir?
director's remuneration in the name of sitting fees not come under the head salary under the Income Tax Act. If that is the case, it falls under income from other sources. If there is a case, that particular sitting fees is taxable supply in the hands of company under RCM. Is it clear, my dear son? Is the way in which the particular clarification given by CBIC in this circular number 140 dated 10th June 2020. Got the clarity? Coming to the topic called rate of GST. Rate of GST for a manufacturer liable to pay the compulsion scheme is 5%. 5%, I mean to say 0.5%. 5% in the sense 0.5% I want to say. 0.5% CGST, 0.5% SGST. On what? By manufacturer means very clearly notification we have. It is taxable supply plus exempted supply, but the exempt supply should not include dash. Interest and deposit loans advances. That is very clear. For all of them it is same. Got the clarity? Exempted supply you should include in turnover previous year or in the current year, except interest and deposit loans, because exempted supply includes general meaning is interest and deposit loan advances as referred under section 2(6) of the CGST aggregate turnover. But under the composition scheme, it is specifically notified, eliminated by notification, stating that interest and deposit loan advances should not include in the previous year turnover, nor include in the current year turnover. Whenever you say previous year, eligibility criteria. Whenever you say current year, turnover is a tax payable. Is clear?
Since we should not pay tax on exempted goods, just eliminate for payment.
At the same time, a manufacturer who registered in the current financial year, for whom previous year won't be there. In the current year, you have to eligibility, you have to see. In that current year eligibility, when you see turnover, exempted plus taxable, together you have to see. But does not include interest and deposit loans advances. Is it clear? But it includes from 1st April to till the date liable for registration. For aggregate turnover for deciding purpose. Still his turnover not exceed the limit for composition scheme. In that case, he can go for composition scheme. If so, he has to pay GST in the current year at a composition scheme at the rate of 0.5% on turnover. That turnover includes taxable as well as exempted, but does not include 2 points. From 1st April till the liable for registration should not include, as well as interest and deposit loans and advance should not include. Got the clarity?
So that means exempted supplies are applicable only for normal scheme, except interest. Why they are paying GST on exempted turnover?
Because the lawmaker said 0.5% is a turnover. Turnover. Turnover includes what? Taxable as well as exempt supply. That time they gave the clarification. While taxing GST 0.5%, the turnover should not include from 1st April till the liable for registration and should not include interest and deposit loans and advances. Is clear? When you talk about trader is considered a different concept. For a trader is considered aggregate turnover in the previous year includes taxable as well as exempt supply, but does not include dash interest and deposit loans and advances. Is clear? In the current year is considered trader liable to pay GST 0.5% CGST, 0.5% SGST on taxable turnover only. Exempted turnover should not be bring into picture. Then question of interest and deposit loans or advances exclude or not required to say. Is clear? Repeating, 0.5% CGST, 0.5% SGST, a trader liable to pay only on taxable turnover. Is it clear, my dear sir? If that
person being a trader registered in the current year. The taxable turnover should not include from 1st of April till the date of liable for registration. That's all I can say. When you talk about restaurant fellow, rate of GST different. 2.5% CGST, 2.5% SGST. Got the clarity? If that is the case, on turnover, taxable as well as exempted turnover, such a exempt turnover should not include interest and deposit loans and advances. And from the first day of April till the date of liable for registration also not included, well, taxing purpose. When you refer the previous year for restaurant, taxable as well as exempt supply should be including from 1st April to liable for registration included in the previous of previous turnover for restaurant fellow, but does not include dash interest and on deposit loans or advances. Got the clarity, my dear sir? Any difficulty, my dear friends? Fine. Same way I already explained to you the service provider also. Is clear about this? So, with this, we have been completed maximum extent of explanation. Is clear? A quick summary on this. Recapitulation of all the points what we discussed today. Composition scheme. Listen to me, look to me, you will get it. Composition scheme. 2 category of assessees. 1, 3 persons. Who are they? Manufacturer, trader, and restaurant person. Excellent. Whose turnover should not exceed 1.5 crores. In the case of 8 states, Arunachal Pradesh, Meghalaya, Manipur, Mizoram, Tripura, Nagaland, Sikkim, Uttarakhand. In these 8 states, turnover should not exceed rupees 75 lakhs. And they should not deal with dash interstate outward supply. They should not deal with non-taxable supply. They should not deal with e-commerce operator. If so, eligible for composition scheme. If they are eligible for composition scheme in the current year, in the given case, they are liable to pay GST being a manufacturer, 0.5% CGST, 0.5% GST in the current year turnover, which is taxable as well as exempted, but does not include interest and deposit loans advances. At the same time, from 1st April to till the date liable for registration, also not included if they got current year registered. Is it clear, sir? A trader liable to pay GST, 0.5% CGST, 0.5% GST on taxable turnover only in the current year. Previous turnover purpose, taxable as well as exempted. Is it clear? Restaurant liable to pay CGST, 2.5% CGST, 2.5% SGST. Is it clear? On what? Taxable as well as exempt turnover. Previous year, they should not exceed the threshold limit, which includes taxable as well as exempted. Is it clear? Then, coming to the second category, a service provider other than restaurant fellow. In that case, we referred by saying that his turnover should not exceed rupees 50 lakhs. In the current year, you can choose the composition scheme. Liable to pay CGST 3%, liable to pay SGST 3%, on taxable as well as exempt supply. Is it clear? In all cases, common. Previous year turnover means taxable as well as exempted, but does not include interest and deposit loans advances. And also include previous turnover from 1st day of April to the date of liable for registration also included. For a manufacturer, trader, restaurant, or other than restaurant service providers. Is it clear? Current year turnover only complication. Current year turnover for manufacturer is taxable as well as exempted. For a service provider, taxable as well as exempted. For a service provider other than restaurant, also taxable as well as exempted. For a restaurant fellow also taxable as well as exempted. There in that current year turnover, when you're going to be taxed, should not include from the 1st day of April till the liable for registration, and should not include interest and on deposit loans and advances. Is clear? For a trader is considered current year turnover only going to be taxed only on taxable turnover. Therefore, question of this and all not going to arise. So, in the case of taxable turnover, going to pay by trader, CGST, SGST 0.5% each. That turnover in the current year should not include from 1st of April till the date of liable for registration. As simple as this. Is clear, my dear sir? So, at this point of time, I'm concluding the class, and continuation of this by see you tomorrow, sharply at 6:30 a.m. Thank you, my dear friends.
If restaurant is turnover is less than 1.5 crores, but they are delivering to Swiggy, then it will be e-commerce.
Supply of services through e-commerce operator not eligible for composition scheme. Now what happened? Your point is valid to consider for discussion. 1 minute, my dear friends. All restaurant nowadays routing through the e-commerce operators. Therefore, the lawmaker said it was earlier GST for restaurant 18% on appointed day on 1/7/17, quite for a few months 18%. For composition scheme, only 5%. And if I go for composition 5%, I'm eligible to supply the goods through e-commerce operator, without which I cannot do business. So the industry struggling with this. Government of India, upon the recommendation of GST Council, said, Mr. Restaurant Fellow, you may be composition scheme assessee or normal scheme assessee. You are eligible to pay GST only 5%. 5% only liable to pay. Restaurant Fellow liable to pay GST how much? 5%, 2.5% CGST, 2.5% GST. Even though he is not a composition scheme assessee, the rate has been revised for them. Because of this, ITC not eligible, the main point. And the second one is the procedural aspects are very less when you talk about composition scheme, and due date of payment of the GST also be quarterly once for composition scheme, for normal scheme monthly. These are not some variation, that's it. Otherwise, rate of GST is not much difference, because all restaurants are going with the e-commerce operator nowadays. Then they disqualify composition scheme. No problem. They will say, we'll pay normal scheme, same rate only. No problem. Who? Normal scheme assessee paying normal rate can claim ITC.
Same rate, but then we can claim ITC also.
See, with regard to ITC, claiming by restaurant, where you're going to pay how much percentage? 5% GST, for them not eligible. Understand?
Why will someone go for composition within restaurant? Only for procedure.
Services by way of transportation of goods by an aircraft from customs station of clearances in India, from customs station of clearances in India to a place outside India is also be exempted. This exemption in the recent past, furthermore, validity of this extension has been extended to 30th September 2021. Got the clarity, my dear sir? This notification says that this exemption, if transportation of goods from Indian customs station to a place outside India, is also be exempted from the payment of GST, that validity has been further extended to 30th September 2021. In the recent past by virtue of a notification. Is clear, my dear sir? Any difficulty? Now here, I have a doubt. Are you aware of that? The Space Research Organization, ISRO, you aware of that? Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO, also launching satellites of the government or other companies, other countries' satellites in the orbit with the help of rocket launchers. Rocket launcher is a vehicle. You are aware of that? Rocket launcher is a vehicle carrying the satellites into the space. Now, let us say, Antrix Corporation Limited is a government undertaking, government entity, 100% owned by government stakeholding. Antrix Corporation Limited, a government entity, own this particular rocket launchers carrying satellites from the space station, Indian Space Station, to space. Space is outside India. Now, Antrix Corporation, using their rocket launchers, vehicles, transporting goods, namely satellites, to a place outside India. Correct? Space is outside India. You cannot say the boundaries equal to the above level, that and this cannot measure. Space means outside India. Transportation of goods, namely satellites, by Antrix Corporation, using the rocket launchers, means vehicles, into the space from the Indian Space Center. If so, qualify exemption? Not qualify exemption. Reason? ISRO, Indian Research Space Organization, not a custom station. You get my point, sir? Here they said, transportation of goods by air from Indian custom station to a place outside India only exempted. Very clearly said, Indian custom station, from custom station of clearances in India. Space Center is not a custom station. Therefore, I used to say in the class, is a taxable supply if it is location of supplier and location of recipient from India, where the place of supply may be outside India, because space is outside India. Since supplier of service, recipient of service in India, which is taxable supply, I used to say. That time I used to say, if ISRO is a space station, ISRO space station, let us declare as custom station. If so, then only will be called as exempted. Now, we have exemption. In the recent past, Government of India issued a notification upon the recommendation of Justice Council. Our intention not to tax Antrix Corporation. Antrix Corporation is the government entity providing excellent services, outstanding services, carrying the satellites, using their vehicles, namely rocket launchers, to the space. We have to give the due respect to technology. We are proud about ISRO functions. In the recent couple of days before also, excellently they launched the satellites in the orbit, in the space, for communication purpose. And we are proud to say our ISRO is providing services successfully by launching the satellites of the other countries. Then, if you simply showing a simple drafting sentence, ISRO space station, since not a customs clearances, therefore this exemption is not applicable, resulting that taxable, if you say Antrix Corporation hut or not. That is the reason now we have exemption, separate exemption. Look on the screen. Satellites launch services supplied by Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO, Antrix Corporation Limited, or New Space India Limited, exempted from payment of GST, even though the space research center from where you are going to be launching this particular, you are going to be carry the rocket launchers, though not declared as custom station, specific exemption granted, saying that it is qualified from exemption, resulting that today the clear law is this: if ISRO, Anthis Corporation or the New Space India Limited using their rocket launchers vehicles carrying goods, namely satellites, to space, declared as exemption, declared as exempt supply of service, unconditionally exempted. It is an amendment which is, one should note, from the exam May 2021 onwards. Is clear about this? Further, referring to you, transportation of goods by a vessel from customs station of clearances in India to a place outside India is exempt from the payment of GST, exempted supply of services. Here, this exemption also be extended like your transportation of goods from custom station, air custom station by air to outside India. Likewise, from Indian customs station, namely customs Chennai customs port, from the custom port to a place outside India in a vessel, also qualify from exemption. This exemption validity further extended to 30th September 2020. Extended to this exemption extended to 30th September 2021 is also amendment. It is effective from 1st October 2020. From 1st October, actually earlier exemption was expired on 30th September 2020. Therefore, further validity is given to extend by a further notification up to 30th September 2021. Is it clear, my dear sir? So, now I am bringing to a notice, my dear friends, advanced concepts under the place of supply. My one of friend asked me just now a doubt. Citibank USA instructed Citibank in India to remit the payment. Since the place of supply is in India, I said taxable. If a transaction between head office and branch office, where the place of supply is outside India, we have today specific exemption. But condition is place of supply should be outside India. One classical example, advanced concept. This and all, advanced concept means what? The circular of the CBIC, if not notification of the government of India, upon the recommendation of the GST Council. Look here. Services supplied by establishment of person in India to own establishment out of India is exempt. When exempt? If the place of supply is outside India. Example on the screen, my dear sir. From India, CLM head office of Chennai supplied interior decorating services to C Limited branch office of Singapore. Now you tell me, this particular supply of service will fall under section 12 of IGST, section 13 of IGST. 13 of IGST. If so, as per section 13, subsection 4, services in relation to immovable property. Place supply goes to location where the property is located. Where the property located? Singapore. So a transaction of supply of services between head office and branch office, whose place of supply goes to outside India, which is specifically treated as exempted supply of service. You should not say export of service. Export of service as defined in section 2, subsection 6 of the IGST, it should not be a transaction between head office and branch office. Therefore, this particular supply not qualify from export of service, thereby made taxable. To avoid the taxation, the GST Council recommended to grant exemption is exempted supply. Exempted supply of services. Got the clarity, my dear sir? Any difficulty, my dear friends? Then, under the advanced concepts, one more point, recent amendment from 1st April 2020. A transaction of business to business, B2B, important note, B2B I am talking, B2B transaction, namely business to business transaction with regard to maintenance, repair and overhaul services have been notified as the service for which place of supply shall be the place of effective use and enjoyment of service. Effective use and enjoyment. Sir, my dear sir, now tell me, place of supply in the given case goes where the effective enjoyment of service. One example here, look here. On the screen, importer in India carrying out of the overhaul services. Carrying out of dash type of services, my dear sir, overhauling services. Overhaul services. For that purpose, imported. What is imported here means, look here, import of dash means the following: for maintenance, repair or overhaul services in respect of dash, in respect of 1. Aircraft, in respect of aircraft engines, in respect of other aircraft components or parts, in respect of that overhauling, repair, maintenance services for which imported, first transaction imported, for repairing of aircraft engines, spare parts, components, repairing in India. Aircraft also came for repair purpose, maintenance purpose, overhaul purpose. After doing the repair by C Limited in India, exporting back, second transaction, exporting back after overhauling to A Incorporated USA. By doing service, C Limited in India is nothing but supply of services on goods as per section 13, subsection 3A, the place of supply goes where the performance is actually performed, where performed in India. But by doing that work, who is ultimately getting the benefit? A Incorporation of USA. So, effective use and enjoyment goes to USA. Therefore, the lawmaker said, in a given circumstances like this, import of what? Aircraft engines, spare parts, components, what for? Repair, maintenance, overhauling purpose. After repairing, again returning back to outside India. The effective enjoyment and use goes outside India. Therefore, place of supply cannot be as per section 13, subsection 3A. Therefore, it falls under section 13, subsection 2. Thereby, where the ordinary course of business, recipient location identifiable? Identifiable where? A Incorporation of USA. Place of supply in the given case is equal to USA as reference in 13.2. Therefore, what happened now? Location of supply in India, C Limited. Place of supply outside India, recipient also outside India, payment received in the foreign currency, well qualified for dash, export of services, thereby not liable to pay GST. So, place of supply of services in the given case I too mentioned for your kind consideration is as follows: USA. 13.2. 13.3A actually false. But effective use and enjoyment goes where? To outside India, to A Limited of A Incorporation of USA. Therefore, the lawmaker said here, place of supply is the location of the recipient. Reason? Section 13(2) of IGST we considered. This is advanced concept. It is not applicable to all cases, only notified cases only by notification. Further, my dear sir, point number 3, advanced concept. Here I am referring for your kind consideration. Point number 3, clarification regarding determination of place of supply of services in case of software or design services related to electronic, semiconductor and design manufacturing services, namely called as ESDM, electronic, semiconductor and design manufacturing industry. What they used to do now, sir? Electronic, semiconductor and design industries in India designing a software, customized software as expected by the recipient of service from outside India. Artificial intelligence services, robotic services, or the application of their various system software services. What happened here? In the given case of electronic, semiconductor and design manufacturing unit in India is from software industry, getting certain prototype calls from their clients outside India. What type of service you required? Sir, we have the branches in so many countries and the transit took place in one place, should be referred to other place, and ensure the end of the day all the transit update automatically. Fine. So in India, ESDM, electronic, semiconductor and design manufacturing company, doing that particular requirement activity by writing the computer programming in India, and after doing so on the prototypes given by clients from overseas and again sending back, is it okay? Okay. So one particular part is completed. They used to work on the products given by their client from overseas to India and getting the information by way of product and working on it and giving as a sample test to them to test if the client says from overseas okay, and considering that as a complete part, like that part completing. Finally they are completing entire software what is expected by the customer software by client. Here what happened, when they get the product from outside India from the client in India to carry out certain activities thereon, performance on the goods generally falls under section 13(3)(a), place of supply goes in India only, but this fellow is carrying out any repair activity or any performance activity on the product. That is not main job. The main job to provide customized software. As a whole, it should be treated as a composite supply. If composite supply, which consists of software development, design for integrated circuits electronically, testing the software on sample prototype hardware, all put together is a composite supply whose principal supply should be software development services, resulting that software development services is fallen under section 13(3) to 13(14), 13(3) to 13(13) is fallen, nowhere fallen, therefore falls under section 13 subsection 2. Thereby location of the recipient address identifiable, yes, outside India. For the company ESDM, electronic, semiconductor and design manufacturing company in India, place of supply is outside India, therefore export of services not liable to pay GST. Reason, export of services, zero rate supply. In fact, the input basket they can ask for refund. Further, my dear sir, likewise identified sector they have been given notification to treat like this, not for all. Pharmaceutical sector, nowadays pharmaceutical sector playing vital role. Serum Institute of Pune, Bharat Biotech from Hyderabad, they are carrying out research and development services in pharmaceutical sector for a foreign company. Assume a London based company given a work to carry out the research and development in India in pharmaceutical sector. So Bharat Biotech from Hyderabad carrying out research and development activity which is pharmaceutical sector. Once they find out the correct formula, and that benefit goes to whom? Foreign company only. Foreign company given work to Bharat Biotech in India to do the research and development in pharmaceutical sector. Bharat Biotech in India, by working so much hard work day and night, their scientists, they identified the excellent formula to eradicate a particular disease, and that formula they developed in India for a foreign company purpose. Correct? Ultimate benefit goes to whom? Foreign company. Therefore, why should be place of supply in India? It should not be as per section 13 3A. It should be section 13 2 only. Thereby, place of supply goes outside India. Therefore, not liable to pay GST in India, and it will be treated as export of services, except the case where place of supply as per the normal provision falls in India. Since a specific provision is given, it will be export of services only. I mentioned the note fulfills all conditions of section 2(6) except place of supply outside India. Now that also fulfilled because of the notification. Thereby, place of supply is outside India. All conditions of section 2(6) export of services fulfilled. Not liable to pay GST at all. Is clear, sir? Further, my dear sir, likewise, clarification given by the CBIC, service rendered by Port Trust Authority of India. In India, Port Trust generally provides various services to cargo. Is a cargo flight, cargo vessel. Is a cargo vessel. This vessel is called the cargo vessel. Came to the port. Is called port. Where Port Trust providing various type of services, permitting them, hooking the langar, or the what we can call as lighthouse services, or halting services, repairing services. Like that, Port Trust is to provide various services to vessels. In that case, how to identify place of supply? Law of the lands very clearly says that location of supplier and location of recipient from India. From India, sir. Then blindly go with section 12(2). No, sir. Location of supplier or location of recipient, various service provided to the vessel by Port Trust people. In that case, location of supplier or location of recipient from outside India. Yes, sir. In that case, decide as per section 13(2). Don't go any other section. Various type of services. Various services are being provided by the port authorities to its clients in relation to cargo handling services. In that case, blindly please go with section 12(2) of IGST place of supply if location of supply and location of recipient from tax obligatory. Otherwise, go with section 13 subsection 2 as a default provision to decide the place of supply. If Port Trust provide various services to vessels, cargo vessels especially, in that case the place of supply will be 12(2) or 13(2) as the case may be. Is clear, my dear sir? Don't refer, for example, my dear, security services provided. Otherwise, security services as well as loading, unloading services and repairing service also provided. Generally, repairing service, if you refer, it will come 13(3)(a). You get my point? Don't go with that. Go with 13(2). If location of supplier or location of recipient from outside India, because it is not one type of service they are rendering. They are rendering multiple services. Therefore, you please go with 13(2), if not 12(2). Is clear, sir? This is a clarification. Questions going to come in the examination from this area by numeric examples also. I am not saying exempted here. I am not saying exempted. Which section should be referred means location of supplier and location of recipient from India told to. In the case where port trust people provide various type of services in relation to cargo handling services. Is clear? If not, 13.2. Further, my dear sir, specific exemption one way or the other. Exemption means place of supply specifically identified. A case where clarification of the CBIC. Here, these diamonds without polish, am I right? Without polished one. Supply of services, unpolished diamonds, such as cutting the diamonds, polishing the diamonds, which have been temporarily imported into India and are not put to any use in India. After that, after carrying out the polishing, cutting in India on the diamond, same diamond exporting back from whom imported, without being put to use in India, in that case, it generally falls under which category? Section 13(3)(a). But specific notification says that don't go with section 13(3)(a). There it became IGST liability. Here, place of supply is shifted to 13(2), resulting that location of recipient is the place of supply. Will become outside India. Therefore, not liable to pay IGST, or one way or the other, we will call it as export of services. Only this specified nature only I am telling, do not bring other things. Are you getting my point, sir? Only the specified nature. What are the natures I said no here? Especially if you refer, one is called what? Overhauling purpose, repairing services, import the aircraft engines, spare parts. Further, especially what we can call as here, what we can call here also is there, ESDM services. It should be 13(2) only. Further, research and development services in India for foreign company, 13(2) only. Like that, port authorities provide various services in relation to cargo handling services. It should be a 13(2) or 12(2) as the case may be. Like that, specifically import of dash diamonds, unpolished diamonds, uncut diamonds, cutting in India, polishing in India, exporting back without being put to use is section 13(2). Look on the screen. Rule number 31 capital A of the CGST rules, which talks about from 1st March 2020 onwards, value of supply in case of lottery. Value of supply in case of lottery run by the state government or authorized by state government, both the case, as the case may be, same formula. Valuation will be as follows: 100 divided by 100 plus GST, multiply with face value of the lottery ticket, compare with 100 by 128, multiply by price notified in the official gazette by the organizing state. If the price given by the organizing state notified in the official gazette itself is exclusive of taxes, then do not apply again 100 by 100 plus tax. In formalities, what is price notified by the state government? Sir, price notified by state government in the official gazette, exclusive of tax, sir. Then do not apply 100 by 128 multiplied by price notified by the government. Is clear? But face value when you take, always inclusive of GST. Reason, MRP price. It's clear, sir? So what I have given here additionally means valuation. Valuation is considered rule number 31A, which says that how to arrive the value for the lottery. Given lottery, always MRP price, which is inclusive of GST. Therefore, the GST 28%. It may be state-run lottery or state-owned lottery, as the case may be. In that case, apply on the face value, multiply by 100 by 100 plus GST. What you will get? Value exclusive of GST. That value compare with the price notified by the state government, which is also exclusive of tax. Among the two, whichever is higher, choose and select as your value of supply. taxable value of supply. On such taxable value of supply, apply the GST rate 28 by 100. Is clear? Or 14 by 100 CGST, 14 by 100 SGST. Is it clear, my dear sir? Solution.